All right, so welcome to another deep dive.
Hmm.
Today, we're going to be taking a closer look at Marco Rubio. You guys have sent us a ton of articles about him,
Yeah.
his Wikipedia page, some news stories,
Hmm.
and we're going to break it all down for you.
Yeah. It's like a Rubio cheat sheet
Think of it.
for anybody out there
Yeah.
who wants to be in the know.
Exactly. Perfect if you want to be in the know without spending hours reading all this stuff.
That's right. So we'll cover everything from his early days in Miami all the way to his current nomination as Secretary of State.
Yeah.
And trust me, this is no ordinary political story.
This is juicy. It's got twists and turns you wouldn't believe.
It does.
For instance, did you know that Rubio actually once had dreams of
Really?
NFL glory,
Wow.
and that his family's immigration story is a little more complex than he initially let on?
Interesting.
We're going to pack all that and more.
Yeah, we'll delve into his rapid rise through Florida politics, his time in the Senate, even his presidential bid.
Yeah.
And then, of course, how all those experiences might actually shape his approach as Secretary of State.
So let's rewind all the way back to the beginning. Marco Rubio was born in Miami in 1971 to Cuban-American parents. And he often talks about his working-class upbringing. His dad was a bartender. His mom worked, various jobs.
Classic.
It's that classic American dream narrative.
Exactly. But like many political narratives, there's more to the story.
Oh, I love it already.
Rubio frequently claimed his parents actually fled Cuba after Castro took power.
Okay.
However, deeper research has actually revealed that they immigrated in 1956 before the revolution even started.
That's a pretty big difference.
It is. It's a big difference.
It challenges the image that he presented, doesn't it?
It does. Identifying with post-revolution exiles carries significant political weight in Florida. And Rubio attributes his earlier statements to family lore and insists his parents always planned to return, but they just changed their minds after Castro's rise. Still, it highlights how politicians shape their narratives, and that's always something worth keeping in mind as we go deeper.
It was good to be a critical listener.
Absolutely.
Now, let's talk about young Rubio. He excelled at football in high school,
Yeah.
and he even earned a scholarship to Tarkio College in Missouri.
Wow.
That athletic drive seems to have stayed with him, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. While his time at Tarkio was short,
Right.
he eventually transferred to the University of Florida, where he graduated with a poli-sci degree.
Okay.
And then it was on to law school at the University of Miami. You can almost trace a direct line from that competitive spirit on the football field to his ambition in the political arena.
Yeah, it's fascinating how early experiences can just shape a person's trajectory. Now, I want to encourage everyone listening, if you're finding this interesting, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel,
Yeah.
and drop a comment below. What stands out to you about Rubio's early life?
Yeah, we love hearing your thoughts. It helps us know what resonates with you. Now, back to Rubio's story. After law school, he interned for Ileana Ros-Lehtinen,
Yep.
a very prominent Cuban-American congresswoman. He even worked on Bob Dole's presidential campaign in '96.
Wow.
These experiences provided a very valuable foundation for his future political career.
He was clearly learning the ropes.
And building those connections.
Yeah, building connections. And then in 1998, at just 27 years old,
Wow.
he was elected to the West Miami City Commission.
That's a fast start.
Talk about a fast start.
It is.
And that was just the beginning. Just a year later, he secured a seat in the Florida House of Representatives. His rise was meteoric. By 2003, he was majority leader. And in 2006, at the age of 35, he became the youngest ever Speaker of the Florida House.
That's incredible.
That's incredible. He achieved so much at such a young age. What factors contributed to his rapid ascent? Was it charisma, political savvy, or something else entirely?
He certainly possessed charisma and a knack for connecting with people. However, it was more than just charm. He brought a fresh, innovative approach to policymaking.
Okay.
One striking example is his 100 Innovative Ideas for Florida's Future project.
Okay, I have to hear about this. What was this project all about?
So instead of dictating policies from the top down,
Right.
Rubio distributed blank books to his colleagues, encouraging them to gather ideas from everyday Floridians.
Oh, wow.
It was a brilliant way to engage constituents and demonstrate a commitment to fresh thinking.
It sounds like he was trying to tap into the collective wisdom of the people he represented.
And it wasn't just for show. Around 24 of those ideas were implemented into law, with another 10 partially adopted. And these ranged from
Wow.
practical changes like multi-year car registrations to expanding school choice programs and even promoting vocational training in high schools.
Wow.
It's really a testament to his ability to translate, ideas into concrete action.
It's a refreshing example of a politician actively seeking input from those he serves. But did this approach win universal praise? Was there any pushback?
Some Democrats actually saw him as someone they could work with.
Okay.
But his conservative agenda and clashes with the more moderate Republican-controlled Senate,
Well,
and even then, Governor Charlie Crist, inevitably created friction.
It seems like political differences are just unavoidable,
They are.
even within the same party.
Yeah.
So even though he was young
Right.
and relatively new to the scene, he wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo and ruffle some feathers.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that boldness, combined with his evident talent and charisma, fueled speculation about his next move.
Yeah.
Would he stay in Florida politics, or would he actually set his sights on something bigger? Yeah. That ambition, that drive to aim higher, ultimately led Rubio to make a pretty bold move. In 2009, he decided to challenge the incumbent governor of his own party, Charlie Crist, for the open Senate seat.
Whoa. Talk about taking a risk. Going up against a popular figure within your own party requires a certain level of audacity, would you say?
It certainly does, but Rubio saw an opportunity. He tapped into the growing Tea Party movement,
Right.
positioning himself as this fiscal conservative outsider ready to shake things up in Washington. His campaign was relentless. He crisscrossed the state, connecting with voters and hammering home this message of change.
So he was employing a strategy that had worked well for him before, going directly to the people, presenting himself as a fresh voice. Seems like he understood the power of grassroots mobilization.
He understood it well. And as Rubio gained momentum, Christ made a surprising decision. He abandoned the Republican Party and opted to run as an independent.
Wow.
This handed Rubio the Republican nomination, but it also set the stage for a thrilling three-way race in the general election.
That's a twist. Suddenly it becomes Rubio, the Tea Party favorite, against Christ, the independent, and Kendrick Meek, the Democratic candidate. What a political showdown. How did it all play out?
It was a decisive victory for Rubio.
Okay.
He secured almost 49% of the vote, with Christ trailing at around 30% and Meek at 20%. This win propelled Rubio onto the national stage, cementing his status as this rising star in the Republican Party.
This victory, this marked the beginning of his journey in the U.S. Senate. It's incredible to think how far he had come in such a short time. His story is a testament to ambition, hard work, and a knack for seizing opportunities.
Absolutely. And as he entered the Senate, he brought with him that same drive and that same commitment to conservative principles, particularly when it came to fiscal policy.
Yeah, it's clear that fiscal conservatism has been a consistent theme throughout his career. How did this translate into his actions as a senator?
From the outset, he was a vocal advocate for a balanced budget, consistently criticizing what he perceived as excessive government spending. He remained true to his Tea Party roots, challenging the status quo, advocating for limited government intervention in the economy.
So he was staying true to his core beliefs, even as he transitioned onto a larger stage. But he wasn't just focused on domestic issues, was he? He was also developing a reputation as a foreign policy expert.
That's right. He quickly became a prominent voice on issues like Cuba, Venezuela, and China, advocating for a strong American presence on the world stage. His hawkish stance, particularly his tough stance against communist regimes, was increasingly shaping his political identity.
It seems like his Cuban-American heritage played a significant role in shaping his views on foreign policy, particularly when it came to Latin America.
Yeah.
It's interesting how personal experiences can influence political perspectives.
Absolutely. His background gave him a unique perspective, and he wasn't shy about expressing his views. He became a key figure in shaping U.S. policy towards Cuba and Venezuela, consistently pushing for a tougher stance against those regimes.
If you're enjoying this deep dive into Marco Rubio's career, be sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts and what aspects of his story resonate with you. Now, let's delve further into his Senate years. He was making a name for himself on both the domestic and foreign policy fronts. Did this lead to any speculation about higher aspirations?
It did. The question of whether he harbored presidential ambitions loomed large, especially throughout his early years in the Senate. And then in 2013, he made a move that many interpreted as a step towards a potential presidential run.
Right.
He joined a bipartisan group of senators known as the Gang of Eight.
The Gang of Eight, it sounds almost like something out of a movie. What was the purpose of this group, and what role did Rubio play?
So the group was focused on tackling this incredibly complex issue of immigration reform. Rubio played a key role in crafting a comprehensive bill that aimed to provide a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants while simultaneously strengthening border security. It was a bold attempt to find common ground on a deeply divisive issue.
It sounds like he was taking a more pragmatic approach, trying to work across the aisle to find solutions. This seems like a potentially risky move for someone with presidential aspirations, especially within a party often divided on immigration.
It was a gamble. The bill managed to pass the Senate with bipartisan support. And Rubio garnered praise for his leadership. But the story doesn't end there.
Oh, there's always another chapter in politics.
Oh, wait.
What happened next?
The bill encountered fierce opposition in the House of Representatives, and Rubio's stance began to shift. He started to distance himself from the bill, arguing that the House should prioritize repealing Obamacare instead.
It's a curious turn of events. Some might see it as a political calculation, while others might interpret it as a genuine change of heart. Looking back, how do you understand this shift in his position, and what implications did it have for his political future?
It's difficult to say definitively what motivated the shift. Some critics accused him of flip-flopping to appease conservative voters and bolster his chances in a potential presidential bid. Others argued he was simply responding to the political realities of a deeply divided Congress. Whatever the reason, this move would cast a long shadow, becoming a point of contention during his eventual presidential campaign.
It seems like every decision in politics carries consequences, and even well-intentioned efforts can be subject to scrutiny and reinterpretation. It's a reminder of the complexities of navigating the political landscape.
Indeed. And all of this was unfolding against the backdrop of the 2016 presidential election. Remember, at this point, Rubio had decided not to seek re-election to the Senate. He was fully committed to pursuing the presidency.
So the stage was set for a national campaign. It was time for Rubio to step into the spotlight and see if he could capture the hearts and minds of American voters. But as we all know, the 2016 election was a race unlike any other. The 2016 Republican primary was a crowded field.
It was.
Full of big personalities and even bigger ambitions. Rubio was up against seasoned politicians like Jeb Bush, Ted Cruz, not to mention the political phenomenon that was Donald Trump.
Talk about a race unlike any other in recent memory. The debates were explosive, the rhetoric often personal, and the stakes incredibly high. Rubio tried to position himself as a bridge between the party's conservative base and a more optimistic, future-oriented vision for America.
He often emphasized his youth, his energy, his ability to connect with, a new generation of voters. And let's not forget, he delivered the Republican response to President Obama's State of the Union address in 2013, both in English and Spanish.
A significant moment, really highlighting his ability to appeal to a diverse electorate. However, the dynamics of the race, particularly his interactions with Donald Trump, created a unique set of challenges.
Their relationship was certainly complex, to say the least. It went from seemingly cordial to downright hostile at times. Those nicknames, Little Marco, Robot Rubio, definitely added fuel to the fire. What was at the heart of their rivalry? Was it purely personal, or did it reflect deeper ideological divides within the party?
While personality clashes were certainly a factor, their rivalry also exposed the growing rift between the Republican establishment and the populist wave that Trump represented. Rubio was often seen as the establishment favorite, while Trump positioned himself as the outsider, the disruptor. Their back and forths often played out like a microcosm of the larger struggle for the soul of the Republican Party.
It's amazing how those personal dynamics can mirror broader political trends. So how did Rubio fare in the primaries? Was he ever a serious contender for the nomination.
He had some early successes, a strong third-place finish in the Iowa caucuses,
Okay.
and a win in the Minnesota caucus showed his potential. However, he struggled to maintain that momentum.
Yeah, his past support for the Gang of Eight immigration bill came back to haunt him, didn't it?
It did.
And his attacks on Trump, while initially effective, seemed to backfire in the long run.
It's a delicate balance, appealing to both moderates and conservatives in a party increasingly polarized. And then came the Florida primary, a crucial test for Rubio on his home turf.
Yeah, a make-or-break moment for sure.
Unfortunately for Rubio, it was a decisive loss. Trump won by a significant margin, securing all of Florida's delegates. This defeat effectively ended Rubio's presidential hopes, and he suspended his campaign shortly after.
It's a reminder that in politics, sometimes even your best efforts aren't enough. After such a public and bruising campaign, what was next for Rubio? Did he retreat from the political arena or find a new path forward?
He initially indicated a desire to return to private life, stating that he was done with politics. But then a tragic event seemed to shift his perspective.
Okay.
The Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando, a horrific act of terrorism, shook the nation.
Of course.
And deeply impacted Rubio.
It's a reminder that even in the midst of political battles, real-life events can intervene and just change everything.
Absolutely. Just a few months after suspending his presidential campaign, Rubio announced that he was running for re-election to the Senate. He cited the Orlando shooting as a motivating factor, saying he felt this renewed sense of duty to serve his country.
It seems like that tragedy prompted him to reconsider his priorities.
It did.
And re-engage with public service.
He went on to win his re-election bid, defeating Democrat Patrick Murphy.
Okay.
And this marked the beginning of a new chapter for Rubio. He was back in the Senate, but he was no longer the ambitious newcomer. He was a seasoned politician, having experienced both the highs of victory and the lows of defeat.
And all of this was happening as Donald Trump assumed the presidency. Given their history, how did Rubio navigate that relationship? Did they manage to find common ground, or was there still tension between them?
It was a complicated dynamic.
I bet.
Like many Republicans, Rubio had to balance his support for the president with his own principles and convictions. He was critical of Trump on certain issues, particularly his rhetoric and foreign policy decisions.
Okay.
However, he also voted in line with the administration on key issues like tax cuts and judicial appointments.
It sounds like he was walking a tightrope, trying to maintain his own voice while operating within the realities of a Republican-controlled government.
Indeed. However, throughout this period, his focus increasingly shifted toward foreign policy, particularly his increasingly hawkish stance on China.
It's almost as if he was laying the groundwork for his eventual role as Secretary of State.
During his second term, he became a leading voice on China, raising concerns about the Chinese Communist Party, advocating for a tougher stance on trade and security.
Okay.
He also remained a vocal critic of the regimes in Cuba and Venezuela, calling for stronger sanctions and support for democratic movements in those countries.
So he was honing his expertise, building credibility on the world stage, all while navigating the complexities of domestic politics.
Absolutely.
And then, in a surprising turn of events, President-elect Trump nominated him for Secretary of State.
It was a historic choice, making him the first Latino to hold that position. It's a testament to his knowledge, his experience, and his ability to maneuver within the intricate world of international relations.
This deep dive has been quite a journey, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
We've traced Rubio's path from his Miami roots to the Florida legislature, the U.S. Senate, and now to the very top of American diplomacy.
It's a story full of ambition, setbacks, and ultimately a historic appointment that will undoubtedly shape the future of U.S. foreign policy.
Before we wrap up, I want to encourage all of our listeners to subscribe if you enjoyed this episode. And don't forget to leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Rubio's journey and what his appointment might mean for the future.
And we truly appreciate your engagement and feedback.
Yes.
And if you're passionate about supporting in-depth analysis and insightful conversations
like this one,
consider contributing to our Standing in the Gaps podcast GoFundMe campaign.
Your support will help us upgrade our equipment, things like webcams, studio microphones, editing computers, so we can bring you even higher quality content.
That's right.
And reach a wider audience.
Every contribution, no matter how small, makes a difference.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the life and career of Marco Rubio. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the world around you.